Hi, everybody, and welcome to another exciting episode of the Magenta Mix Podcast. Today, we have a rock star guest in the house. It is the one and only Jim Fielding. You've seen his magic in action, even if you don't know you've seen it. He's held some of the most coveted positions in the business world, from his time as president of Disney stores worldwide to his role as CEO of Claire's and global head of consumer products for DreamWorks. Yes, impressive DreamWorks. Jim has been a trailblazer, currently serving as the president of Archer Gray. Archer Gray is a media company dedicated to reimagining brands with a commitment to DE&I and being the author of the compelling new book, All Pride, No Ego. Jim embodies the Magenta Mix philosophy of focusing on purpose, strategy, and culture. I have known him for years, and he does those three things well. We are in for a treat because Jim's going to share his incredible journey, drop some wisdom, discuss the critical elements of purpose, strategy, and culture in building a successful business. Get ready for an episode as lively and colorful as the Magenta Mix can get. Buckle up, folks, because we're about to dive into a chat and be truly inspired with our guest, Jim Fielding. Welcome, Jim. Jim Fielding, welcome. And before I sing your praises, I just have to congratulate you. I understand that your new book that I mentioned in the intro, All Pride, No Ego, has hit the USA Today bestsellers list, debuting at 53 in all book categories.
Yes, thank you so much. It's great timing. Thank you for having me, number one. But yeah, it's huge news for our entire little team that's been working so hard on this. So thank you so much.
I'm kind of hoping that this is the first podcast that announces the debut.
It is. It is.
Good for you.
You got the scoop.
Thank you so much. And for those people who are watching this on YouTube, let's clarify the color of your sweater. I'm calling it sherbet.
Yes, the retailer in you, Gary, is coming out. Well, when I knew I was on with Gary Magenta, right, I had to have my own
how to wear color.
And so I coordinated my color and my glasses. I think about this stuff. I'm a retailer. So yes, it's sherbet, I would say.
I'm not sure you know this, but both of my parents were clothing designers.
I remember you telling me that. Yeah, no, I mean, I love color. I've always loved color.
So it's always my first reaction, which is, what is somebody wearing? And never really a big consideration for me. So I appreciate you showing up, and I appreciate you showing up in such a colorful way.
Of course.
You have had, I think, Jim, one of the most remarkable and diverse careers out there. There isn't a major enviable company that you haven't been part of the leadership team. Yeah. And so what I'm really curious about is, at the Magenta Mix, we are very focused on helping organizations really define their purpose, create the strategy for today that helps them achieve it, and focus on the culture that will accelerate their strategy. And as you think about your work at places like DreamWorks and Claire's and Disney stores and companies like that with such a global reach, and you think about your leadership, how have you really led those important categories of purpose, strategy, and culture?
Yeah, I mean, thanks for asking that. I mean, I think I'm known now as a culture builder. To me, it really starts with culture. It starts with the people and the kind of companies I've led and the divisions I've led, the companies I've worked for. They're not really capital intensive, they're human capital intensive. So you really need the best and the brightest talent in the industry to pull off what we pulled off over these years. So to me, building the culture and using my authentic leadership style and skills, that's where it started. And then once I had that culture, keeping people focused, we were always purpose driven. We were always mission vision driven. And I really believe that in every company I worked in, there was qualitative and quantitative goals that the team knew that we had to accomplish. But more importantly, I feel like each individual on the team knew what their part was of achieving that overall goal. And I think that's something that I've worked very hard on to translate these rather lofty division goals or company goals down to an individual level.
Yeah, I think that's you just hit one of the keys. If people don't understand what their role is and how they
Totally.
impact the bigger picture, we can feel lost or not appreciated or without a compass. So I'm so glad you said that,
Yeah.
and it really leads me into the thought around purpose. How important is creating a clear purpose to the success of an organization?
Oh, I think it's paramount. I think it's not even an option anymore, because I really think, to attract and retain talent, especially younger talent now, they want to understand how they fit into the bigger picture, and they want it to have a higher purpose. It's not just about making money or, quote, punching a clock or getting good benefits or good pay. And Gary, because you've done this for so long, you can look at tons of studies. When people leave a company or leave a job, they're not leaving because of comp or benefits.
No.
They're leaving because they're not managed correctly, or they don't, to your point, understand where they fit into the overall picture.
Yeah.
And so to me, it's you don't have a choice. I mean, first off, it's how I manage and lead. But honestly, you don't have a choice, because you will lose your talent 100%.
Yeah, so awfully glad that you said that. It's not only do we understand the organization's purpose, but can we attach to it emotionally?
Absolutely.
Can we attach our personal purpose, even if we haven't clearly articulated it yet? Can we align what we stand for, what's important to us, with the company? And Jim, what I'm finding is so important is that I'm a baby boomer with millennial kids, right? My kids are in their early 30s, and I turned 60 this month. And it's important to both of our generations that we're doing purposeful work. But I really love that the millennials have brought it to light in such a big way. I don't want to work here unless our purposes align. And
no, the millennials, and then even Gen Z below that. Like, I see it in the interns now, right? Because below your kids, we have Gen Z, and they are even more purpose driven than the millennials, and really want to understand company guidelines and want to understand how this division or this job actually helps make the world a better place. And I totally agree with you. I love that these younger generations, out of the voices of the young, the mouths of the young, they're pushing us to articulate it, and not only articulate it, but walk the walk and talk the talk. Like
100%.
Like and they hold us accountable.
Well, they're holding us accountable, but they're also making decisions on who they're going to work for,
totally,
and based on, do we line up? Do our purposes line up here?
Totally, and they will. And I've been saying for the last 2 or 3 years, even before the pandemic, there is a war for talent, right? And especially in major metropolitans and in certain industries, if you're not an employer of choice, they will go somewhere else. And here's the other thing about the younger generations. They are so entrepreneurial that if they don't find it in a corporate setting or in a business setting, they'll just go invent a job for themselves.
100%.
And they'll go invent a company, or they'll go invent a role.
Bring their friends.
100%. And that is something, when I was, going through my training period in my early part of my career, I never thought about being an entrepreneur. I thought working at a company was what you did. Like, sure. That's what you did. You were looking for the right role with a company. And so the fact that as an employer, you're actually competing with people who are completely comfortable with going out on their own and doing it themselves, again, puts the pressure on us to make sure that we're creating work environments where people are safe and respected and empowered and feel like they're making a difference.
Obviously couldn't agree more. We're like-minded on that. What I'm seeing as a little bit of a gap out there in the world, and I'm curious in your thoughts, is that organizations say, of course we're purpose driven. Of course we have a great culture. And then when we ask them to articulate, well, what is
really hard?
It's really hard. So, I'm trying to work with organizations on clearly articulating a purpose statement and a culture statement.
Yes.
So people know in the culture statement is embedded the norms of how we are going to show up. The purpose statement really acts like a beacon or a lighthouse. What are your thoughts on creating those sort of statements, or being really purposeful about being able to consistently articulate it?
Yeah, I mean, I think I love the work you do. You know that, Gary, and we've worked together, before. And I think what's really important is, yes, do the work, but it's not about doing the work to put a slogan up on the wall, to
For
your point,
sure.
right? It's about actually embedding it in your culture and embedding it in how you approach your job on a day-to-day basis, and in the environment that you're managing. And you have to be prepared to be measured and judged by your employee population. Because if you say you're going to operate in a certain way, or this is why you're doing things a certain way, they
Yeah.
will hold you accountable. I said that earlier. And I personally love that, because I love the dialogue. I love the feedback loop being two-way. I love kind of 360 reviews where, okay, this is how you're doing, but how are we doing for you? How am I doing for you as a
Oh,
leader?
no, I love that.
Because I think again, that's the way that I want to be managed, and I think that's the way most people want to be managed. And if I'm not, and by the way, in my career, I have left jobs where I felt I was being incorrectly managed. There's a ton of stories in the book about that, because I felt that I had a talent, I had a light that I wanted to bring to a company. And if that light wasn't being appreciated or nurtured, then I needed to take that light somewhere else. So
Yeah.
in my own career, I've done it.
Well, I'm not sure, you'll tell me, at the time, your bosses were not asking you for feedback on how they're doing, as you're suggesting here today.
Some of them did. I mean, I think what's interesting in looking back over my career as I was writing the book, I've had excellent bosses, I've had good bosses, and I've had bad bosses. And what I realized, Gary, as you know, I learned from all of them, right? I took something away from all of them. But the best bosses for me, when I would say my most excellent bosses, were the ones who were open to 360 feedback and who were asking me, what can I do to help you be more productive? How do you want to be managed, right? How do you want to receive feedback? Do you want weekly touch bases? Do you want monthly touch bases? Like, those were my best bosses overall. And, I write in the book about, Andy Mooney, who I had at Disney for 11 years. He was an incredible boss for me because he set goals, he set expectations, he made me feel supported and empowered, and then he let me do my thing. He did not micromanage me.
Well, and you said something so key there, Jim, that there's two things that I really want our listeners to take from this. Is one, if you are a great boss or a great leader, great people leader, great people manager, you're asking for feedback.
Yes.
So important. And then the second thing that you said is that not one size fits all, and that some people need a weekly touch point and some don't need to talk to you for 45 days.
Totally.
To shove everybody into that same format, you have to create an environment as a leader that's right for them. And love that you mentioned that. Thank you.
Well, and it's really important if you're managing global teams, right? If you're managing geographically dispersed teams, and global, you may be managing language differences and cultural differences. It's really important that you ask and alter your leadership style for your Japanese team members or your Italian team members or your South American team members. And I think the only way you do that is by asking and by listening and actively listening and learning. And, I think situational leadership, which is basically what you're describing, like I learned early on, to your point, one size does not fit all.
Well, it's certainly situational leadership. It's also, I put that in the bucket of leadership culture. What is the leadership culture we're going to create here, which ultimately has that impact on how others feel? Leadership is a big determinant of not just what other people know, but how we're making them feel. What's the expression? People will forget what you said, but they'll never forget how you make them feel.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think what I'm happiest about in my career is that I run into people from the different phases of my career. And for the most part, I'll get some kind story about to your point, a certain memory about how I handled a situation or how I handled a meeting. And honestly, sometimes I remember the story. A lot of times I don't, Gary, because I don't remember everything I ever did. But I do remember the feelings. And if they say to me, you made me feel important, or you made me feel seen, or you made me feel present, or you made me feel heard, then I'm like, oh, thank God, right? That I did the right thing. Even if I don't remember the exact specific situation, I want to remember that feeling.
So I will just add to that. I'm with you. The times when in a work environment you can bring me um, to tears is if
Yeah.
I made you feel exceptionally special or valued, or if I have somehow made you feel slighted.
No,
And
right. It's tears
those
either
are the,
way. Yeah.
those are the two things that will bring me to
100%.
emotion in the workplace.
Yeah.
Because I think as I've gotten older in the leadership role, you realize both the impact that leaders have had on you and
Mhm.
recognize the impact you're having on others.
Correct.
And it's dramatic. It shapes who you are. It shapes who they are. It's
Hmm.
to me analogous of being in a parenting role.
Very much.
You're guiding.
And I have people that I've worked with now at 3 or 4 companies, right, where we've moved around kind of together, and that happened organically and naturally. It's not like I consciously was like, I want these people to move with me. But again, with the benefit of hindsight, you're like, oh my gosh, that was such a valuable tool that I was able to bring these people along, and we had almost a shorthand of type, because you could reference things from your past where you'd say,
Of
remember when
course.
we did that project? We need
Yes.
to do that again. We need to do
Yeah.
something like that. Or remember when we did that event? That was a really cool event. How can we do that again? And
That's
it doesn't mean I didn't want to mix in new people, because I did at every job, but there is something super comforting about having that group of people that you just groove with.
you just described a family dynamic, right?
Totally.
And I just look at organizations as big families. Some
I
of
do
them,
too.
some of
Chapter
them
4, learning number 4, find and nurture your chosen family. That's learning
for
number
sure.
4 in the book, for sure.
Absolutely right. Nurture your chosen family. I read that, and some of the families are dysfunctional. We know that too.
Totally.
It's our job as leaders to make them more functional.
Hmm.
Um, I want to just talk to you a minute about strategy before we get to the book. You have had lots of experiences where you have
Hmm.
been in the role to come in, develop, and execute a
Hmm.
strategy through people.
Hmm.
Sometimes I'm assuming it's gone really well, and other times it's been more
for,
challenging.
for sure. I've had as many mistakes as wins, for sure.
Just your choice, dealer's choice here. Would you like to talk about a win, or would you like to talk about a challenge? And I think, by the way, the audience would love to hear the challenges because we're all
Oh,
facing
for
them.
sure. I'll talk about a challenge. I have no problem with that at all. I mean, my tenure as CEO of Claire's was challenging. I loved it. I was super honored to be in that role. I actually loved the brand. I loved the customer. I actually loved, we had stores around the world, 30,
Yes.
30 odd countries. And I traveled a lot in that job and got to see the magic of Claire's and the magic of ear piercing the whole time. We worked on a very comprehensive 5-year strategy. So my first year there, it really was a fixer-upper. There wasn't a lot of time to think long-term because there were so many short-term issues.
Yeah.
I was just plugging holes, right? And moving and shaking. But then we sat down with, a team that I had built, some people that I inherited when I got there, other people that I brought in. And we did a comprehensive 5-year plan process that I was really committed to, and I thought the board of directors was committed to as well. And, we had a board of director meeting, we had board of director sign off. And when I went off to start executing it, I was getting challenged every step of the way, because I was getting challenged anytime there was money that had to be spent, right? So remodeling stores or buying out of leases early or getting a new lease in this country or changing partners in a country, because we had some franchise countries.
Sure.
And what I realized was I had underestimated what the definition of buy-in was, Gary, right? Like I thought it was approved and they understood that there was going to be some ups and downs in this, and that, it was a 5-year strategy. And so that didn't mean like all the benefits paid off in year 1. But the situation that I was in, being owned by a private equity firm with a lot of debt on the books, I underestimated. They really didn't want a 5-year plan out of me. They wanted me to manage short term and to manage the P&L and manage and debt and service the debt. So I misread the situation. Like that was a mistake that I made. And what's been interesting in watching Claire's, and I have so much respect for them, some of the things that subsequent management teams have done because they went through a change, I'm not saying they went and got it out of the desk, but there's things they've done that were in our 5-year plan. Yeah. And I've reached out to some of my members of the team who helped me on that 5-year plan just to say to them, hey, did you see what Claire's did at the drugstores? Did you see what Claire's did at Walmart? You should feel good about that because we had that idea in 2013. We had that idea in 2014. Sure. And it was important for me because I would say that 5-year plan was not considered a success by the board of directors and by the owners of the company. But it was important to me for the people that had worked so hard on that plan that they actually understood there were some good things in there.
You're putting 1,000 lessons. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, for sure.
There's 1,000 lessons in here.
There's a lot.
The first one that you said that I think we can all benefit from is the best laid plans without alignment, in this case with your board,
are worthless.
In the alignment of money and time. I heard all about alignment there. How long is it going to take? How much money is it going to take? What is the expected
managing expectations? 100%.
So I mean, we've all been there where we've got a great plan and we haven't aligned everybody on it or haven't done it effectively. And then the second is sort of the execution and how long it will take. And so in the situation you're in, what I'm hearing is the plan sounds like it could have been a great plan, but the
time frame, right? The time frame was off.
The investors didn't buy into the time frame.
Yeah,
I appreciate your honesty in that because it's difficult, but I think you're really helping people who are listening right now understand that we have to make sure that the timing is right. It could have been a great 5-year plan, but maybe what the board really wanted was a 5-month plan.
Totally, or like a 2-year plan, 100%. And I learned a lot about my own active listening and really board relations and investor relations, making sure that I should have taken more time up front to make sure that I really, really fully understood the assignment. Because I had come from Disney right before Claire's, 5-year planning process was like the norm, right? I mean, just that was part of our culture. So I knew how to do 5-year planning process. I'd never worked in a PE-owned firm before and probably underestimated the value system and the measurement systems that a PE firm used versus a publicly traded firm like Disney.
And maybe even the involvement that they want compared to just a regular board involvement.
Completely. And, and I think having always worked in big companies and working, in big companies that have huge finance departments and investor relation departments and stuff, I hadn't really been trained in that. I'd been trained in a lot at Disney, at Gap. I hadn't really been trained in that. So I'm not saying I couldn't do the job or I wasn't the right candidate for that job. I do think I was the right candidate for that job. I just think my learning curve in that part was steep. It was a steep learning curve.
You are the most forthright person that I know. I always appreciate that. And I appreciate you going down a track of where it wasn't the outcome that maybe you wanted, but I can't tell you how valuable I think that is for leaders at every level that are listening to you to hear that even a tenured seasoned person like you coming from places like DreamWorks has an opportunity to learn new things. So thank you for sharing.
Yeah, for sure.
Jim, while I was going through your book, I was trying to see where do we really line up when we think about purpose, strategy, and culture. And I just want to call out a few chapters. So the name of Jim's new book, which is again now hit the USA Today bestsellers list, premiering at 53 in all categories. There it is.
There
you go. Here's a few things I saw. You have a chapter, Maybe Leave Our Corner of the World a Better Place than We Found It. To me, that speaks to purpose. And you look at control the controllable, but leave space for the possible. And I see strategy in there. What can we control? And where is the space that we can really flourish in? Let's create a strategy there. And then when I was looking at building high performance teams and cultures of excellence, well, it has culture in the title, right?
Yeah.
It's about culture. Could you talk a little bit about the book, and what was your
Mhm.
motivation for writing the book, and maybe its tie to purpose, strategy, and culture for us.
Yeah, I mean, I think my purpose in writing the book was I realized, and a lot of people in my life have been telling me, like, I think you have a book in you. I think your approach to life and your life story is kind of interesting. And I was like, no one really wants to read an autobiography of Jim Fielding because they don't know who he is, right? But I did realize that my leadership style and my personal style, because I was an out, gay executive during all this,
Yeah.
was unique. I was a little bit of a unicorn, and the structure came to me with the help of my editor. I give her full credit when she basically said, write the book. At the time I was 56, that 56-year-old Jim writes to 26-year-old Jim, because in the book I talk about the fact that I didn't come out publicly until I was 26.
Yeah.
And that he wished he would have found on a bookshelf somewhere. And when she gave me that permission, then it was like, she's like, I know that you have leadership lessons. I know that in your philosophy. And she said, just start writing a list of your leadership lessons. Doesn't matter how many, doesn't matter how few. I think that's the structure of your book. And, we narrowed it down to 10. I had more, but we narrowed it down to 10 that we thought were the most important. We played a lot with the order. When you read the book, you'll kind of feel the order.
Yes.
And they are definitely leadership lessons that were formed over 35 plus years of doing this, right? And so the one you mentioned, maybe leave our corner of the world better than we found it. I used that phrase in a speech I gave when I was 17 years old to the National Honor Society in Toledo, Ohio. That has been a mantra of mine my entire life, I realized, looking back, is that I wanted always to leave situations better than I found it, whether that meant work, personal relationships, family relationships, charity work I did. That had been with me my whole life.
I have to pause you because you mentioned Toledo, Ohio. I think that Toledo, Ohio has spawned two of the big names in the world, and that is Gloria Steinem and Jim Fielding.
And Danny Thomas. Don't forget Danny Thomas.
Well, Danny Thomas was
originally
Danny Thomas was originally from Detroit and then moved to Toledo.
I know, that's fair. I'm very proud of my Toledo.
Of course, you should be.
Roots. Then the other one you mentioned, control the controllable, leave space for the possible. Honestly, in the time you've known me, Gary, probably the first part of my career all the way up to my early 50s was just control the controllable. That was a phrase I used all the time.
Yeah.
The leave space for the possible came with maturity and wisdom, because I realized I'd become so controlling and so scheduled and so process oriented and planful that I was not leaving the space to just dream and innovate and breathe a little bit. My personal and professional life were so scheduled and regimented that I had lost creativity. I'd lost some of that spark. I'd lost some of the passion. And then to your point, the chapter on, building high performance teams and cultures we talked about already. It's how to use culture and how to use authentic leadership to build those high performing teams. Because I've always felt, and you mentioned it earlier, I'm a manager and a leader that works with people and through people, not on people. And that it was really two heads are better than one. We're all in this together. And that's the leadership style that had me dressing up like a troll for the licensing show in front of 1,500 people, right? That's the management style that had me learning the dance to We're All in This Together from High School Musical. And I'm literally doing a dance routine at the front of a meeting. That's that piece.
Time out. I just got to call them. Yes.
There's tape.
Just don't know how much prodding you need to do.
Oh, I love to perform. Oh, yeah. No. No, but I mean, listen, I still, I had moments where I was like, what? You want me to dance to the High School Musical dance? But then when I do it, I practice really, really hard.
Well, so listen, there's another, I love all the leadership lessons you're giving, because true leaders go first. And they're not afraid to put themselves out there and be the only one dancing or be the person dancing.
Well, and here's the thing, Gary, the companies I was working for, and I used to say that, this because we work together. I love Disney Store is by far my favorite job I ever did in my whole career. And it's no offense. There's no offense against any other job I've done. But all of my jobs had to have fun in it. I would say, we're not doing brain surgery here, people. Like, if we make a mistake, nobody's going to pass away or nobody's going to hemorrhage on the table. Like, I'd be kind of gross about it. So I want us to take risks. I want us to be innovative because we're supposed to be creating magic. We're supposed to be creating fun. Nothing in a Disney store, honestly, a Claire store, in anything we did at DreamWorks is a basic essential human need. It's not food, water, shelter, anything. It's a treat. It's a wish. It's an indulgence. And it should be fun and it should make you smile, right? And if we weren't creating those emotions in families and in kids, we were failing. And so I would constantly be picking up product and squeezing it to make sure it was huggable and making it play music and whatever it was supposed to do. I wanted to know that any product that we were putting our name on, our brand, was magical and was authentic and was going to bring a smile.
Yeah.
And that meant it had to be a fun environment to work in.
So you said a few things in here, and then I've got a follow-up question, but you said a few things in here that just strike me, that others can learn from. You as a leader were very in touch what was going what was going on at the front line from the point of view of the customer and the employee. So when you talk about squeezing, and I had a plush toy in mind when you did that.
That's what I did. Yeah.
Yeah. On a Disney store floor, you were really putting yourself in the customer's shoes. And something I've always appreciated about you and wanted to highlight here is that if we're not in touch with the customer's wants and needs, we can't guide or create a culture for our frontline employees to deliver it. And you've always been brilliant at that. And what you said there is that you were also always in businesses where you would have fun that would make you smile.
Yeah.
I'm curious, where are you having fun and what's making you smile today?
I mean, I love, I consciously made the decision to leave the big media consumer products type roles. With the Disney acquisition of Fox, I was like, okay, I've done it. And now what I love that I'm doing, is I'm a partner at Archer Gray, a small independent media company based out of New York that makes incredible quality storytelling, film, television, documentary, Broadway shows. And I get to work on our own projects, our own intellectual property, but I also get to share in select projects with clients that I consult for and advise. And I'm selective about the clients I work with because I want to make sure that it's truly a project where I can add value, but also where I can take away from that assignment. Like, I'm learning at the same time. It's not just about making money. I want to learn. I want to continue to be stretching. And then what's happened with the book, again, I never really intended to write the book, but what I've realized with the book, as it's gotten out there and we're starting to get reviews and people are contacting me and, I get messages on LinkedIn, I get messages on Instagram. It's opening up a dialogue and a conversation that's so necessary right now. And I love that's bringing me a lot. That's feeding my soul a lot.
Good for you.
Yeah.
Good for you.
Yeah.
You and I talked when you first made the decision to leave the big world. And at the
big
time,
one.
You were still entertaining. Well, what am I going to be when I grow up?
Totally. I did a what color is your parachute exercise. You helped me. I mean, I was panicked. Like, I was like, can I really do this? Can I pivot? We had that whole conversation.
All right. So for everyone who's listening, the man who says he's panicked has been responsible for some of the largest media companies reimagining brands that you all know and creating some of the best experiences out there. And what I love about that is, Jim, all of us in leadership roles sometimes fall into imposter syndrome. Like, am I really good at this? Will I be wanted again? And I will just tell you that you've done a remarkable job of once again reinventing yourself. Please tell us where people can buy the book.
I always say first, please go to your local independent bookstores because I'm really supportive of independent bookstores. But of course, you can also go to Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Target, really any of your favorite places that sell books. You can go to our website, www.allpridenoego.com, and there's links from the website. And a company that we've loved working with is shopqueer.co, who have been amazing supportive of authors in our community. So I love the independence. I love the smaller company. I understand why people buy from Amazon. Of course, I'm happy if you buy at Amazon as well.
I needed to get it quick so I could read it before we talk. So I apologize.
Yeah, I don't have a problem wherever fine books are sold. And it helps me, by the way, community, if you go into your independent bookstore or your Barnes and Nobles and you ask for the book, because sometimes they only have 1 or 2 copies. It actually does help authors, any author, not just me, if you go into your local bookstores and ask to see a book or that you're looking for, because 9 times out of 10, then they'll order it because of that customer.
Yeah. Jim, you are bold, you are bright, you have done some of the most meaningful work out there in consumer products for sure. And it has always been my pleasure to have you in my world. So thank you so much.
No, I'm so excited about this podcast and what you're doing and the way you're helping the world. So thank you so much.
Very nice of you. I'd like to have us end with just what's your one piece of advice that you'd offer leaders coming up in business today?
Yeah, that one's easy. It's the last learning in the book, and I'll let you go read it, but you'll understand it. Authentic kindness is more important than being first or being right. So I'm asking young leaders of all ages, lead with kindness. We need to be kinder to each other in the world right now. And I really am passionate about that.
And it shows.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate it, Gary.
Thank you again, Jim Fielding, for all the wisdom that you brought to us. And thank you to the listeners. This has been our second podcast, so we still want your feedback. Write us a review, send me your comments. Please subscribe to the Magenta Mix Podcast. Watch us on YouTube and tell a friend. Thank you all for joining, and we will be back next month with another great guest.